Hello, this is Andrew Jobling, the accidental author, and very excited to be sitting with Fred Winn. Hello, Fred. How are you?
Very well, Andrew. Yourself?
Oh, it couldn't be better, mate. Couldn't be better.
Great.
And very excited to be chatting to you about your new book.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, mate. It must be an exciting feeling to have published your very first book. Have,
It is incredible.
have
Incredible.
you got it there, mate? Give everyone a bit of a look.
Here
There
you
it
go.
is.
Yeah.
For the Least of These, which
Yes.
is an awesome title. And Fred, you and I have been working together for a while, and I know this has been a bit of a journey for you, hasn't it?
Yes, it's been a journey. It's been 5 or 6 years. I didn't work on it every day. I worked on it here and there. But then the pandemic hit, so I started working on it more and more. And then the George Floyd tragedy occurred, and that focused my writing more. And the book I ended up with is far different from the book I started out with.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a journey, but it's been a good journey.
Yeah, and I think that's always the way, mate. When I know for me, when I've ever started writing a book, it's never finished the way I'd planned it, because life happens and you learn and you get perspective and stuff. Just adds to the
Exactly.
story. I've always said there's nothing bad in life; it's all just content for your book. So tell us a bit about it, mate. Like I know when you started writing, it was one thing, and it's as you said, it's sort of morphed into something else. Tell us a bit about the book and what really inspired you to want to write it.
The title is For the Least of These. It's taken from the book of Matthew in the New Testament. Jesus is talking to his disciples. He's explaining, and he's also talking to us. He's explaining what the end of time will be like. Christians believe that Christ will return and will judge us all for our deeds and etc. And he's going to set people down on the right and on the left. And the people in the place of honor on the right will be welcomed into paradise. And he's going to tell them, because I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. And he has a couple other examples there too. But they're going to say, well, I never saw you hungry or sick or in prison or. And he'll say, well, when you did it for the least of these, then you did it for me. And that's how I got the title.
Ah,
Included prisoners in the least of these. Now, the least of these are people that lack resources, don't have a voice, don't have money, and they need somebody to speak up for them. And so prisoners fall in that, but other people do as well. So that's what my book is basically about, the first part.
okay, so you're giving a voice to people, and I know your background. You worked for a long time as a librarian in a prison system,
Correct.
so
Law
you
library.
were able to experience and observe different people and different experiences and different and the way different and certain people were treated based on the color of their skin, or
Well,
what? Tell us a bit about what you observed and what it was that really inspired you to write. Well, certainly start writing the book.
the majority of the people in prison in California and elsewhere too in the states are people of color, and that is in part due to their lack of resources um, and the lack of opportunities growing up. So that was very obvious when I started talking to them, interacting with them. The education level was very low, and so they started coming to the library. They started working on their cases, and I saw many inmates get their sentences reduced, and some even got out of prison because they received too much time for their crime. Um, so that was very rewarding, being a part of that. And I just thought that was an interesting story. So I started making notes and mental notes about it, and decided when I retire, I would write about it, which I ended up doing. Yeah.
Awesome. And then what happened to the book? Because I know that was happening, and then there was some significant things happening in the US that
Well,
sort of.
I started writing, but I was writing stories about inmates coming to the library and doing this and doing that. And I found it amusing and all that. But then the George Floyd thing happened, and people that I know and that I respect and I actually like would tell me that the concept of Black Lives Matter is racist because they said all lives matter. So I'm thinking, well, all lives have never mattered in society. And I started focusing my writing on that, trying to determine when all lives matter. And I never did find that. What I did find out, though, was that there are elements of the Christian church that have always been opposed to Black progress. There are elements of the Christian church that was in full support of kidnapping and bringing Africans to this country, to this continent. They were in full support of enslaving them. They were in full support of keeping them enslaved when the other parts of the country said, no, we can't do this anymore. They were in full support of what they called Jim Crow. After the slaves were freed, they had all these different laws that restricted their ability to succeed. For example, just one example, it was against the law for a Black person to be unemployed. If he was unemployed, then he'd get arrested and they would have to go to court. Then there'd be court charges, which he couldn't pay because he didn't have any money. So another person would come and say, hey, I'll pay his charges, but you have to work for me to work it off. And they oftentimes died under those conditions because the work was so brutal and so harsh. And, so they were against that. Then in my lifetime, the civil rights struggle, there were elements of the Christian church that opposed that. And this is all taking place in what they call the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
The country that has strong moral values. And so that really kind of disappointed me. And I kind of really realized that. I started thinking about that and I started writing about it.
So, Fred, what are you hoping to achieve with this book?
Well, there are a lot of people that think that Christians are full of anger, full of hate. And I urge them to read the Bible for themselves, read the Gospels, read Jesus' words, and they'll realize that we serve a God of mercy, a God of love, a God of grace. God is love. That's one thing. So they will not look at what they see in the media, people claiming to be Christians that are always bashing the least of these, people that are poor, people that are refugees, right? The other part is that I want to give a wake-up call to the evangelical community, to my fellow Christians, to examine your actions, your political views, your thoughts on things, and make sure they line up with what Christ is teaching us. Yeah. Because in many cases, in my view, they do not.
Yeah.
So that's what.
Okay. So what you're trying to do, Fred, is you're really trying to have a positive impact here, but it's going to, you're going to obviously ruffle some feathers for sure, because it's interesting how, you're talking about probably the difference between faith and religion, and when religion is, I guess, and as a relatively new Christian myself, religion is the interpretation, a group's interpretation of the Word of God. And it's easy to misinterpret or reinterpret or create your own interpretation of what that word means, and then how. So I guess you're just trying to get people back to the pureness of what Jesus did here on earth and what his life and death,
like the early church
represented.
Go back to that period. Yeah.
Getting people back to love.
Right.
Just that unconditional love.
Exactly. The words in Matthew 25, starting verse 30 or 31, they're very clear. We have to take care of people that are sick, refugees, people that don't have money, people that are hungry, people that are, and we're not doing that. We're not. There is a great deal of opposition to this from the wrong circles, in my view. Christians should be the first ones to say, yes, we should do these things. But too often they're not.
Yeah.
So it's a wake-up call for them.
Yeah. It's quite a confronting thing to do I think for a lot of people I know, even for me, confronting to deal with maybe people that are homeless and hungry, and how do you deal with it? And it's easier to pretend it doesn't happen, or it doesn't exist, than it is to actually face it and go, wow, there's a problem here, and I can be a part of the solution simply by just noticing and doing something to make a difference. So I think what you're doing is awesome, Fred. I think it's wonderful. It really is. So good on you for having the courage to write something that obviously is going to be a little bit controversial. There's no doubt about it. It's going to create a little bit of controversy when it really gets out there and gets moving.
Well, life is never easy.
It's not easy, and it takes, and I think it really does take every single person to stand up for what they believe in. And Fred, I love what you're doing, is you're actually standing up for something you believe very deeply in, and you're putting yourself out there to really get that message out, mate, which is wonderful. And that's why we write books. That's why we do what we do, because we want to get a message out to the world. So Fred, what are you hoping to come from this? What do you see moving forward for yourself and for the world?
Well, I'm not under any illusions that this is going to change the world or anything, but if it changes the minds of a few people, I think that'd be worth it.
Yeah.
Some friends of mine whose views are different from mine, and some of it has been positive. Others have said, "Well, we'll talk about it." But who knows? It'll open up a dialogue for us. I used to have friends that were all political spectrum, political, but now people are so polarized. They just, they're so angry, and so it's difficult to communicate with somebody for that you disagree with politically sometimes.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, good luck with it, mate. Now, Fred, if people want to get their hands on it, how do they do it?
But my website is fredawinn.com. So you can contact me there, and we can hook you up with the book.
And I'm sure it'll be out on Amazon and all those normal
when it comes out,
channels.
Yes.
But fredawinn.com if people want to reach out to you. So go to Fred's website, go to Amazon, and order yourself For the Least of These. Anyway, Fred, congrats, mate, on your first book. I know it's going to be wonderfully successful, whatever that looks like. I know it's going to have an positive impact on lives, and good on you for doing it.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.